Hey everybody, what's up? As you can see, I'm outside, and again, this is another edition of the cartoon Flashback. But you know, I'm going to talk about a cartoon that's not really that old. Matter of fact, depending on how you look at it, it's 6 to 7 years old, basically, or going on to be 6 and 7 this fall. The show I'm talking about, of course, is Loonatics Unleashed. Now, a lot of you probably have heard of that, and you probably have heard online that it's got a bit of a cult following, which is true. Loonatics Unleashed, the concept at first was kind of, when they first came up with the concept and announced this was happening, there was some very critical response. You know, not everybody was willing to accept what they were about to see here. You know, some felt it was a bastardizing of the Looney Tunes franchise, and they just, you know, some people felt that it wasn't, you know, going to be anything Looney Tune related. Felt that it wasn't going to be anything, like I said, Looney Tune related, and like I said, they thought it would be a bastardized. In fact, some people, I think parents, mothers or something like that, felt that they looked a little too extreme, a little too, well, they just didn't have a good feeling about the Loonatics, let's just put it that way. But all that was tossed aside, if you will, when I guess it was further explained that, you know, there's nothing really to worry about. Again, some of that tension and criticization was kind of, I guess, put on the back burner, if you will, when, you know, they were given a better idea when the creators at Warner Brothers kind of had to ease their tensions by saying, look, you know, you're misunderstanding, you're misinterpreting this. It's nothing bad. These are the Looney Tunes. These are basically, they had to go on to explain, which turned out to be a basically the thing was they had to explain the fact that these characters were descendants of the Looney Tunes that would live in the future, and that turned out to be the answer, I guess, that kind of calmed the storm a little bit. So basically, when it finally premiered, everybody got a better idea of who these lunatic characters were. Now, yes, again, like I said, they were described later on as being descendants that had a bee flying around there, I don't know why, but later on being descendants of the Looney Tunes themselves. Now the first season was kind of more like an introductory season and kind of show you that this was more of a, basically what I guess they originally planned it to be, kind of a very serious, at times comedic, but very serious cartoon show or animated series. Because you see, the villains they faced were original villains. You know, nothing familiar or similar or anything. So, like I said, nothing familiar or similar to who they were to anyone in the past. That wouldn't be until the following season. but I'll get into that in a bit. But again, like I said, there was always a bit of a you know, basically this was nothing more than, like I said, an introductory season to who the characters were, what they were about, and what the mission was. Excuse me for a second. I don't want anybody to interrupt me. Like I said, this was a bit of a, like I said, an introductory season to kind of give you an idea who the characters were and who they were basically like descendants from, and basically, overall what their mission was and also how they got their powers, which was pretty cool. Now, just like with any team, of course, any kind of superhero team, they had like a mentor, a leader, and no, it wasn't the character of Ace, who was the Bugs Bunny descendant. Or Cindy, or whatever you want to call him. It wasn't Ace. No, it was an original character named Zadavia. Zadavia was basically a being from outer space, and we later found out in the season 1 finale that she came from another planet. Another planet because she was escaping her power-driven egomaniac of a brother, so called Optimus. Now, for most of the first season, we never really saw Zadavia except through a hologram communications. It wasn't until like I said, to the end of the first season that we finally got to see her in person, just like the Loonatics did. And the animators, I admit, did a heck of a job with the character. I mean, if you wanted to say you needed a mentor drawn, basically, if you were to look at this character, you'd say she was more fitted and drawn for feature film, which technically, when you think about it, she was. But anyway, Zadavia basically explains how everything came to be, how the Loonatics got the powers and everything, and how many of the villains that they faced throughout the first season got their powers as well, and even in the second season. Now, some of the villains of the first season, like I said, were just like Zadavia and Optimus. They were original villains. They were originally created. No lookalikes or descendants or whatever of other lunatic of other Looney Tunes characters into the second season. Now, how could this be, you ask? Well, because there was so much hype amongst that controversy that I talked about and that tension, but because there was so much hype, if you will, put behind, put behind it into the Loonatics franchise, if you into this show, that that Warner Brothers went out and they got some celebrities, if you will, to do the voices. One of the most notable ones is Academy Award winner Michael Clark, a nominee / winner, whatever you call him, Michael Clark Duncan. They got Serena Williams, from the Williams sisters of tennis. And, you know, other celebrities, I can't think of them right now, but they had other ones. And the only similarities to Looney Tunes characters, in fact, they even had Tim Curry. That's one of the celebrities, very common in voice acting now. But they also had, they had kind of like human descendants, if you will, or human descendants, if you will, of Looney Tune characters. Like they had a human descendant / ascendant of Pepe Le Pew. They had a human sorry about that. But like I said, they had a human ascendant of Foghorn Leghorn, and many others. So it was really the villain selection in the first season was original and unique. So I'll give it that. Now, just like the following season, I'll get to that in a minute, the first season ended on a two-parter, which was called, I think, Armageddon or something. And it was pretty good. It was pretty good. And it kind of gave us an idea of what we were going to expect in the second season. Now, in the second season, it was pretty much the same, but the difference was it was a little bit more funnier. And the fact was, we also had, like I mentioned at the beginning, the second season introduced us to real, true Looney Tune introduced us to some villains that were true Looney Tune descendants of the original Looney Tunes. You had Tweedums. Well, Tweedums was a good guy. He came at the end of the season a member of the Loonatics, even though he was a prince. You had Slyvester, who was a descendant of Sylvester. You had the Elmer Fudd descendant in there. You had the Yosemite Sam one. You had the Martin the Martian deal. You just had a whole. It was like, wow. It's like I couldn't, really believe what I was seeing, and I don't think anybody else could. Now, even though some people probably have a difference of opinion on the second season, I thought it was good. I thought it was a refreshing look at not just Looney Tune descendants into Loonatics, but beyond that. I really liked it. It was pretty cool. And the second, it introduced us again to new original villains as well. Like you had, I can't think of this race of plant-like females, women, that it looked like Lexi was going to be joining, if you will. Lexi being the ascendant of Lola. That looks like she would have been joined eventually. And so on and so forth. You had that. Heck, you even had a twist on some Looney Tune, some descendants and ascendants to the Looney Tunes. I mean, you had Porky Pig's ascendant, if you will, turned out to be a gangster called the Pinkster, who was associated with the ascendants of Rocky and Muggsy. The same with Granny's ascendant. It was like, wow, these were a unique twists, because no one saw them coming, and I give Warner Brothers credit for that. But the uniqueness about the second season was just great. I mean, because of these twists and turns that you didn't really expect. And of course, like I said, you had original villains. One villain appeared like in the first episode, and then like in the, it was basically like the main villain of the last two, and I'll explain that in a second.